Sydney Sweeney's had a massive rise to stardom in the last few years, but she's facing a lot of issues from the press, and now to make things worse, she's being flat out stalked. Sydney Sweeney definitely didn't grow up in the typical Hollywood background where she was raised in rural Idaho and lived in her family's home that was owned for 5 generations there. Sydney Sweeney spent her childhood being part of the hockey team and soccer team in her school as well as part of the robotics clubs, but then when she was 12 years old, she got cast as an extra for an indie movie that was being made in her town. Because of that experience, when Sydney Sweeney was 13 years old, she pitched the parents on the idea of moving away from Idaho to move to Los Angeles so she could pursue becoming an actress and also a model. The idea actually came from Emma Stone, who at the time was a rising actress for doing movies like Easy A, who convinced her parents at the age of 14 to let her drop out of high school and move to LA with her mom. Sydney Sweeney actually decided to copy Emma Stone's approach, where Emma Stone wrote her parents a 5-year business plan on how she'd become an actress, so Sydney Sweeney did the same thing, which impressed her dad, so the family moved to LA. Moving to LA, the Sweeney family had some problems where Sydney Sweeney's mom was a lawyer, but she retired when she had kids and she wasn't licensed to practice in California. Her dad, who previously worked in the hotel industry in Idaho, wasn't able to find enough work in LA to support a family of 4. For Sydney Sweeney, she was seeing early success as an actress, booking parts on shows such as Grey's Anatomy, 90210, and Heroes, but those were all for small roles and she made under $10,000 doing it even though she was on national TV. Because of financial stress as well as personal issues, Sydney Sweeney's parents did end up filing for divorce, and divorce is the second biggest cause of bankruptcy in this country with 18% of bankruptcy, so her parents went bankrupt also. During this time, Sydney Sweeney was still landing work as an actress, landing shows like Pretty Little Liars, but the problem was she just wasn't making any money, where her appearance on Pretty Little Liars only paid about $2,500. This definitely shows an issue in Hollywood, something called exposure acting, where a lot of actors and actresses are so desperate to get big parts in shows where even though the shows have millions of dollars in budgets, they'll take something as little as $1,000 just to be seen by people to hopefully boost their career. Even though Sydney Sweeney was on one episode of Pretty Little Liars, because it paid so little and also her family was in a tight place financially, she actually was working part-time as a janitor during that period. Before Sydney Sweeney actually booked the show Sharp Objects, she was working full-time for Universal as a tour guide and also doing maintenance on the park. Because she worked for Universal, Sydney Sweeney had one of her first issues with the press, where many people in Universal called her a liar, saying she never worked there and they never allow a new employee to be a tour guide because that takes years of working there to get that job. Because of that, the press started calling out Sydney Sweeney as a liar, saying she lied about her family's bankruptcy, lied about being a janitor, and also lied about working for Universal. Sydney Sweeney was called a liar until one employer at Universal went through the records to find Sydney Sweeney did indeed work there and showed it to the public, saying she wasn't a program to be a tour guide, and also one school came out saying she did indeed work as a janitor. And even after that, the Universal employees who falsely called Sydney Sweeney a liar said it wasn't fair that she was in the tour guide program because of her lack of experience, and said she was only able to get that because of all this. Regardless of the haters, in 2018, Sydney Sweeney had her breakout year with 7 episodes of Handmaid's Tale, 7 episodes of Sharp Objects, and also 10 episodes of Everything Sucks. Because Sydney Sweeney got a good reception doing the HBO show Sharp Objects, HBO offered her the chance to audition for Cassie in the show Euphoria. Sydney Sweeney initially turned down Euphoria because she knew her character would have to do a lot of full frontal nudity and wasn't comfortable with that, knowing her family would see it, who is much more on the conservative side. Sydney Sweeney ultimately decided to change her mind after Zendaya was confirmed to be in Euphoria because she thought the show would be a big success, and also at the same time she read the screenplay again and really liked the character of Cassie. And Euphoria gave Sydney Sweeney her first big payday as an actress, where she was paid $40,000 per episode, meaning she made $320,000, but that was still way less than Zendaya, who made $300,000 per episode. And Sydney Sweeney said the premiere for Euphoria was one of the weirdest nights of her life because she didn't tell her dad or grandpa she was going to be nude for the show, so they actually walked out the premiere saying they wanted to throw up. Even though the male members of the family didn't approve, Sydney Sweeney got a lot of support from her grandma, who said she had the best fill in the blank in Hollywood. Sydney Sweeney's willingness to go nude has made her a sex symbol in Hollywood, and because of that, she's booked over $10 million in endorsements, and at the same time was able to do a bathtub ad which got 100 million views on Instagram. Still, Sydney Sweeney, in the process of getting famous, has had to deal with a lot of issues, with one example being throwing her mom a 60th birthday party where they had hats going around saying "Make 60 Great Again." And that led to Sydney Sweeney getting a variety of attacks from the public, being accused of being a conservative, and also the family was called a group of rednecks. After that party, Sydney Sweeney revealed that her brother as well as her cousins were contacted by the paparazzi offering them money in exchange for photos of her in a bikini when she was just a teenager. Sydney Sweeney's also faced a lot of pressure from the press, with a lot of people accusing her of cheating on her longtime boyfriend and fiance, Jonathan Davino. This happened right after Sydney Sweeney filmed the movie Anyone But You with Glenn Powell, which was a huge success, making $220 million on a budget of $25 million. Right after they finished filming, Gigi Paris, who was Glenn Powell's fiance, announced she was breaking up with him and also unfollowed Sydney Sweeney on Instagram. During that period for months, Sydney Sweeney wasn't seen with her fiance, and also at the same time when she was seen, it was no longer with her wearing an engagement ring. Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney said the cheating never happened and they just played into it to try and sell tickets for the movie, but that wouldn't actually explain why Gigi Paris split up with Glenn Powell and also unfollowed Sydney Sweeney. Regardless of what's actually going on with the relationship, Sydney Sweeney made millions off Anyone But You, so she put some of that money into buying a $13.5 million home in Florida. Living in Florida, Sydney Sweeney is dealing with massive issues with the press, with one example being Easter Sunday, where the press came to her door and knocked on it saying if she walks out in a bikini, they'll leave her alone, but if they don't, they'll annoy her and her family for the rest of the day. Sydney Sweeney refused, but she has revealed the paparazzi stayed outside of her house every single day, and they just took these photos right here in a bikini when she wasn't even looking in on her private property. These images from the paparazzi have led to a lot of people calling out Sydney Sweeney, saying her modeling photos are just using Photoshop because she's much bigger, and they're also accusing her of gaining weight. Sydney Sweeney responded to that, saying she's been gaining muscle intentionally to do the movie Barbarella, and also at the same time posted a video of her working out, which got 10 million views on Instagram. Sydney Sweeney revealed she's actually getting more judgment from women than men on her body, with one example being movie producer Carol Baum, who said Sydney Sweeney was a horrible actress and not attractive at all. Because that, Sydney Sweeney has come out against women in Hollywood, saying she's gotten much more support from male co-stars and also men working in the movie industry, but women have always been against her. And this all goes to show that Sydney Sweeney is one of the biggest rising stars in the world, but at the same time she is dealing with a lot of unnecessary hate. And with that, I'm Charles Pearl. Please subscribe to learn something.